Welcome, everyone. We're going to get started now. I'm delighted to see you. I certainly wish we could be in person, but I want to thank you for joining us today. As you may be aware, January is Human Trafficking Awareness Month, and the Mineta Transportation Institute is proud to be combating this issue. Today's MTI Research Snap webinar, Transportation to Combat Human Trafficking, seeks to add to that effort. My name is Dr. Karen Philbrick, and I'm the Executive Director of the Mineta Transportation Institute at San Jose State University. MTI leads two competitively selected multi-university consortia. The Mineta Consortium for Transportation Mobility, funded through the U.S. Department of Transportation, and the California State University Transportation Consortium, funded through California's Road Repair and Accountability Act of 2017. MTI's mission, as you may know, is to increase the mobility for all by improving the safety, efficiency, accessibility, and convenience of our nation's transportation systems. So today's webinar focuses on a tragic, deeply concerning, and important issue. A form of modern slavery, human trafficking is the recruitment, transport, or transfer of persons using force, fraud, or coercion to exploit them for acts of labor or sex. In fact, according to the International Labor Organization, human trafficking is the fastest growing organized crime in our nation, with approximately $150 billion in annual profits and over 40 million people trapped in slave-like conditions. The transportation industry plays a critical role in combating this issue. That's what we'll learn more about today from our expert. She's going to talk about state-of-the-art efforts being used to combat this issue in the United States, including the role of transportation in facilitating effective programs and increasing victim identification. Our speaker today is Dr. Kezban Sokhat. She is an MTI Research Associate and an Assistant Professor of Business Analytics at San Jose State University. Her research focuses on using decision analytics and management science to alleviate human suffering in areas of human trafficking, humanitarian logistics, and public health, a fascinating background. Dr. Kezban's anti-trafficking efforts have been supported and recognized by many organizations, including the United States Department of Transportation, IBM, where she received the IBM Public Impact Award, and Cook County Human Trafficking Task Force. She also chairs and serves on various local and national anti-trafficking committees. In fact, just yesterday, she also delivered a lunch and learn to the employees of LA Metro so she could start educating those frontline employees about this issue. During today's webinar, if you have any question for our presenter, please drop that into the chat or the Q&A feature. We are recording this webinar, and a link to view it will be available along with the slides shortly after today's conclusion. So thank you so much. Let's get started. Kezban, please take it away and share with us your state-of-the-art learnings.
Thank you so much, Dr. Philbrick, and thank you everybody for joining us today. I'm honored to be able to present to you about transportation to combat human trafficking. Dr. Philbrick actually already had a really nice start on it, but I wanted to talk about a couple of points before we dive into the role of the transportation. According to the 2016 report, an estimated of 40.3 million people are involved in modern slavery, and unfortunately around 25 million are in forced labor. Why am I talking about this? Among these 25 people, around 1,600 of them are in the industry. And among these, every 1 out of 4 is a children. Human trafficking does not discriminate against gender, age, country, neighborhood, industry. It is everywhere. It is in your local store. It is in the local transportation that you are taking. It's potentially at your school, at your kids' school. So with that, let's look at the role of transportation. By the definition given by Dr. Philbrick, and also as you can see in your screen, human trafficking is the act of recruitment, transport, transfer, harboring, and receipts of persons by means of force, fraud, coercion for the purpose of commercial or labor services. You can see in the definition, we have transport already. So this should give you some idea. Although not all the human trafficking cases involve transportation, many of the stages of human trafficking heavily relies on transportation, whether it is recruitment of the persons into human trafficking, whether transporting them from one location to another, or the exit attempts by the victims. So today what we are going to do is we're going to learn a little bit about in this area, the USDOT efforts. So in the past 10 years or so, there have been significant efforts in the United States Department of Transportation at various levels. In 2012, the Transportation Leaders Against Human Trafficking was inducted. Since then, over 400 leaders around the nation are into this program. In 2012, there was a directive to train USDOT employees. So every 3 years, they're supposed to be trained about human trafficking. This kind of tells you about that there is a trend in taking seriously from the USDOT side. There was Blue Lightning Initiative and DHS Blue Campaign Transportation Toolkit, which started to give the practitioners about how to use transportation in different modalities. There are multiple legislation in the United States, federal level, as well as state level. Some of these are Transportation Under Act, FAA authorization, which partially one of them is on the looking at the training the airport employees. The other one is looking at on the roads, combating human trafficking. And there are multiple more of these legislation at the federal level and also at the state level. For example, California, where we currently reside, has a unique legislation called AB 2034, which is aimed to train transit employees about human trafficking. Other initiatives that are from the United States Department of Transportation to combat human trafficking is grant opportunities. In 2020, Federal Transit Authority issued 24 grants for different agencies in the United States to combat human trafficking, to support the prevention education efforts. In addition to that, in the same year, its first of its kind Combating Human Trafficking Award was given to organizations who did significant efforts for combating human trafficking. The first one that I mentioned, Federal Transit Authority, the local Valley Transport Authority is one of the 24 recipients, and I'm happy to be part of it as an MTI researcher to represent on these efforts. The second one that we mentioned, Combating Human Trafficking Award, the first time it was given to United Against Slavery, which is to collect frontline data in human trafficking. So the National Outreach Survey for Transportation had different levels, so each looked at it has already been rolled out, and I'm pretty sure some of the attendees were part of it, so took the survey. It aims to collect frontline data from many different modalities, many different levels of expertise, from operator to the high-level executive. How they know, how much they know, what they suggest to combat human trafficking via transportation industry. In addition to that, the same effort has also another survey to check survivors' point of view and also nonprofits' point of view at 3 stages. Again, I am happy to be part of this initiative as well as the Forced Labor Working Group Chair and Analytics Working Group member. And MTI is one of the UTCs represented in this effort. The report of this is supposed to come this year. Please be on the lookout for it. Another important research and data effort is about the state DOT efforts. There was one grant given by to understand what type of efforts that are conducted by the State Department of Transportation. It's mainly to understand what is currently being done, what they suggest, what are the methods to prevent and collect data. The third one that I would like to present and give a flavor to the audiences, understanding the role of transportation in combating human trafficking in California. As the name suggests, it is specifically geared towards Californian efforts. I am the lead researcher in this report supported by the United States of the Department of Transportation, which I am truly grateful for their support. It involves a survey and also expert interviews from key stakeholders, from nonprofits to government to transportation industry members in the state of California. It looks at both the transportation of the people as well as transportation of the goods made by forced labor, so supply chain management. Today, I will present something that I learned during this study. According to this study, how transportation is utilized at the different stages of human trafficking. At the recruitment level, the most commonly used modalities are buses and trains for the victims that are local. Airlines are mostly utilized to recruit international victims of human trafficking into the United States. Couple of interesting yet horrified comments about this study is that how the tactics of human trafficking changed using transportation to recruit victims post-COVID-19. One of the examples is using masks as a conversation starter in the buses and trains, aged 14 to 16-year-old girls, to gain trust and then later trick them into recruitment. Another stage, exploitation and trafficking operations. This actually depends on the type of the human trafficking, whether it is sex or labor trafficking. In the state of California, most of the time, private cars and taxis and ride shares were used for this sex trafficking during the exploitation. When transporting a victim from one location to another, a date or an act that they need to provide. When we are talking about labor trafficking, vans were the most commonly used modality, the transportation method to carry victims from one location to another location. Again, when we look at the impact of COVID-19 in this stage, we have observed that with the COVID-19, certain types of exploitation on the buses and trains increased, such as forced begging and or sales of magazines or those types by younger age school kids who are supposed to be at school. But due to online education, there is not track of that, so they can be other places as well. Another stage that transportation plays a role is the exit and post-exit. According to the study, which is actually also in line with the national study done by Polaris, buses and the trains are the most used modalities during the exit attempts. In addition to that, transportation is used to support activities of victims and survivors after they exit and they try to support themselves. One of the methods or tools that is either the bus cards or the train cards that's freely provided by some of the transportation agencies, and other ones most commonly used is the Uber free rides, so that a victim can go to observe some of the services, such as a mental health appointment or something like that. Another impact of COVID-19 with respect to transportation that came up is that it became harder to exit because of the controlling situations post-COVID-19. Now, I would like to talk a little bit of the efforts. So this is more on the California efforts, which are in line with the national efforts, but because the study mentioned specifically for the California efforts, we are looking at the first transit one. Transit efforts are the most commonly known efforts in the state of California, due to mainly the one that we talked about, AB 2034. In 2016, the Super Bowl was held in Santa Clara County. Before the Super Bowl, Valley Transportation Authority engaged in prevention in order to prevent and create awareness, engaged in training for their employees, which later graciously opened up the floor for other agencies to train their employees. And in 2018, a new bill to train employees was suggested, which came into role in 2020. Some of the most commonly known agencies that are presented in this picture, which I use their websites to take the pictures, is LA Metro, VTA, and also BART, and also there is OCTA. And I also listed APTA, American Public Transportation Association, which works closely with these organizations. These efforts are the efforts that are done significantly by these agencies are information about their safety and security personnel. The Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month activities is done in this month. They generally have expert personnel dedicated on the issue of human trafficking. They do extensive training for their employees, public awareness events, partnerships with the local communities, especially human trafficking task forces, coalitions. They support research. And also, as I mentioned, VTA is one of 24 recipients of the FDA grant with the title Not on Transit. Other modality efforts, when we look at it, there is efforts in almost all modalities in the state of California, again, very much in line with the national efforts. On the top, you see the efforts from trackers, again, trafficking, which is more in the national, but they're also moving into California space. MTRAC is one of the leaders in this space, also for providing training as well as awareness. When we look at the airports, we see on the left bottom, airports do a lot of different activities involving posting signage. The middle one, then we see that from the Delta, which was recognized for its effort for combating human trafficking, one of the efforts is basically to use mileages to support the transportation needs of victims, to reunite for them to either a safe place or to their families. Another one, again, more on the national level, but also originated in the California, is EPCAT USAID's effort for ending child slavery at the source. Other organizations, Uber, Left, also conducts regular training in line with the local organizations to train their employees and create awareness. Now I would like to give you guys a couple of key learnings about the study. Transportation has a huge role in combating human trafficking in each stage of human trafficking. To the best of my knowledge, there is not much studies over there. And also there is a gap in understanding between different parties, especially in the space of the practitioners as well as the transportation industry communication. However, there are a lot of opportunities to utilize this industry to combat human trafficking. The interviews and the survey suggest that education and awareness is the top priority to combat human trafficking via transportation industry. Partnership is also heavily suggested, especially partnership between local communities, local human trafficking task forces, and the local transit agencies, as well as other airports. Data and tracking is unfortunately missing, and that is a huge need to move forward. The one last thing that I really want to mention is practicing safety. When we think about how to raise awareness, how to attend, it does not necessarily mean that as a transit employee or an airport employee, not to mention go directly into the situation to address the issue, but rather use a protocol for the safety of the employee as well as safety of the victim themselves. I would like to mention just a couple of resources for those of you who are interested and would like to learn more about the issue. The United States Department of Transportation has immense resources talking about how different modalities can prevent and create awareness. Please utilize those resources. United States Advisory Committee on Human Trafficking conducted a specific committee effort on how to put together a really, really nice report talking about all different modalities as well as agencies in this space. It's a long report, but extremely powerful. Please take advantage of that. And then Polaris also has its own. I would also significantly suggest to be on the lookout for National Outreach Survey for Transportation Report, which is coming out this year. Thank you for your joining us, and I'm happy to take any question as you may have at this point.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kezban. This is a deeply emotionally disturbing issue, and you shared a lot of very rich resources and data points. But can I ask you to now just create a picture for us of what we should be looking for? So for example, one of the registrants for today's webinar submitted a question in advance, which is, what can the average individual or someone who works in the transportation industry, but who is not directly involved in this effort do to protect the communities? What should we be looking for? What kind of hallmark signs would raise our hackles and let us know something might not be right with the situation? Especially because I think I heard you say 1 in 4 of the victims are children. So can you help us understand a visual and emotional image of what this looks like?
Yes, so this definitely depends on the modality when we are talking about, but let's talk about the modality of the, for example, the transit. So unfortunately, from the trafficker's point of view, easiest seen targets for victims are younger age kids, potentially girls, at the age of either 12 to 16, between this age. And especially if a person is looking a bit lost, a bit disturbed, anxious, like these are from the outside signs that you can see. Potentially homelessness, if they're also showing those type of signs, runaway youth, those type of the things are the easily outside recognition of from the victim. Other one is if a group of girls are suddenly appearing along with a man or a couple of men, like, you know, which they are not necessarily looking as a guidance, but it's more like from the faces or their attitude that you can see some frustration. That might be a potential indicator. If we are talking about airport, it might be other things. For example, if you're at the airport and you look at the ticket and the ticket counter, from California in the middle of the December or February, you have a person, a girl, again, I'm using female, but it's for all types of genders. But this person is going to Chicago in a very light clothes, no luggage, coat. This is a bit questionable, and it is a one-way ticket. There is no return ticket. Again, this depends on the modality and the situation, but these are simple signs that can be observed by different people. Another one is someone is grabbing their passport. Let's assume, again, I'm using the man and female example here, but a man grabbing the passports of 3 women. Well, we all know everybody has to hold their own passports when we are moving through security, those kind of things. Are kind of simple signs that an average person might look for.
Well, those are certainly not things that I have been tuned in to look for. So thank you for giving us sort of that example of how we as concerned citizens, sorry about that, you can probably hear the siren right outside my window there. But I think that's important to give us signs to look for. I have many more questions, but one has been dropped into the chat. So let me read this to you, please.
Sure.
First of all, great work and presentation, Dr. Kezban. Any future plans on using artificial intelligence for imaging, detection, and reporting of trafficking in transit stations, airports, train, bus, etc., via traffic cams?
Yes, actually, a very good question. This during the interviews, actually, one of the data savvy nonprofit organization leaders actually specifically suggested this, that why don't we use especially the cameras to be able to do this, to be able to track certain images and move back, especially with the data sharing, if possible, having data sharing agreements between different transport agencies to ensure if there is, transport from one train to bus, and so that you can actually look at the continuum of the images. That is definitely an excellent idea and should be definitely proceeded. And again, there is interest actually from our practitioner community whether we can pursue this or not.
Fantastic. That just reminds me that machine learning can be used for social good, whether it's for pedestrian safety or detecting human trafficking situations. Ms. Irma Garcia from MTI's team has dropped a few resources into the chat feature for those of you who may want to learn more. Let's go on to a next question. We have 4 minutes left together today. You did touch on this, but I want to make sure out of respect that I ask this question from a participant. What are federal and state transportation agencies doing to effectively combat human trafficking? For example, US DOT significantly expanded its Transportation Leaders Against Human Trafficking partnership, with pledges signed by stakeholders from every mode of transportation, in addition to labor and non-government organizations from every state in the country. What does this mean, Dr. Kezban? How does this play out?
I think, and based on the study also I do, awareness and education is the most important thing to combat human trafficking. The increased number of leaders shows the dedication of different industry, government, and nonprofit personnel dedication to combat human trafficking. So I think actually this is the significant way to combat human trafficking. I hope that it is going to continue more and more, especially with the NOST effort that we are part of, which increased awareness among the nonprofit community as well. Transportation agencies are coming more and more involved with it, but I think the real issue here is to make sure that we are making the connection with the people on the ground who are actually doing the fight. And once even we identify, the most important thing is, do we know how to serve these victims? So the local communities are the ones who are doing that. So that partnership, I'm hoping that actually it's going to be very crucial. With other efforts that I really like, that actually some industry partners like Amazon or like other bigger trucking areas are also, Walmart are also part of this initiative. Again, their access to the regions is most likely way more compared to the state DOTs in some areas. So if we can actually make the partnership with those better, I think we have much better chance on reaching out to much more vulnerable populations in the areas where access might be an issue.
Well, that's a good point. And I do want to draw everybody's attention to the chat one more time. Somebody has added in some hotline numbers. Thank you so much, Joseph. He says that if you think you may be witnessing human trafficking locally, statewide, or nationally, there are hotlines that you can contact. Those numbers are in the chat feature. They will certainly be included in any reports that are forthcoming. And again, we will have the slides as well as a video of today's webinar available for you shortly after we conclude. Dr. Kezban, you've received a lot of very nice feedback in the chat. I'd like to draw your attention to that before we depart. And for those of you who joined us today, thank you again. We hope that you'll tune in for our next Research Snap webinar, which is February 10th at noon Pacific time. It's the first in a series, and it's called How to Be Your Own Boss Without Going Broke or Crazy. A little bit lighter than human trafficking, but nonetheless important as we educate the transportation workforce of the future. So thanks again for your time today, and I wish everybody safety and health.